The target has disappeared. I can detect no sign of vital activity.
You mean that everyone is dead?
That is correct. Good work, sir.
Ah!
So I've been playing Zone of the Enders. Okay, so my good friend Redifin and I were talking about Zone of the Enders, and that it looked awesome and that I should totes review it, yo. But not having played any of it or really seen anything regarding the game before, I was all like, mate, I want to, but I need that creative spark to get me going. And then he started sending me gifts, which got me all kinds of hot and bothered, and well, here we are. Anyway, that whole Zone of the Enders conversation started with us talking about Hideo Kojima's other games after complaining about the Phantom Pain not being released yet. And while doing this, I came to the realization that playing some of Kojima's other titles might be a good idea, since I haven't played anything outside of the Metal Gear games. Now, when Kojima started working on Zone of the Enders, he wanted to try and create an anime-like mech with a focus on realism. But of course, it wouldn't be a Kojima game if he wouldn't have taken the anime idea and crammed the game full of cutscenes. So he took the anime idea and crammed the game full of cutscenes. The cutscenes in question tell the story of Leo Stenbuck and his orbital frame Jehuti. One day, Leo witnesses his friends getting killed by Baram Officer Viola. Baram being an acronym for kind of generic anime bad guys who kill shit because they just don't give a fuck. So, after running around and crying like a bitch, Leo accidentally falls into an orbital frame. Luckily, he just so happens to be quite good at flying it. And thus, he reluctantly goes on a rampant killing spree in the name of justice and also to deliver Jehuti to its rightful owner, I guess. Anyway, Leo is kinda one of those unwanted kids, so expect a lot of human on mech bondage action. Sadly though, it's not exactly of the same level of quality as some other popular mech-related franchises also infatuated with mech bondage. I mean, it's somewhat understandable since all the time and money they had clearly went into MGS2. But the voice acting and writing are a little bit...
It's all Leo's fault! He made us come here!
No.
And not only that, but in a stark contrast to MGS2, a lot of the cutscenes are pre-rendered, which doesn't look flattering in HD at all. And while all the in-engine shit mostly looks fine, the majority of the dialogue takes place in these codec-like conversations between Leo and Jehuti's AI Ada. So most of the game's dialogue just involves Leo crying about shit and Ada saying,
"What's up, fool? Are you going to bust a cap in those raptors?"
Now, based off of screenshots I've seen prior to playing, I was never really sure what kind of game Zone of the Enders actually was. Well, I guess I kinda expected it to be a somewhat unique take on the space shooter genre, but in reality, it plays more like a regular beat-em-up or hack-and-slash game. It just tends to look a lot more dynamic than it actually is because of all the vertical movement. I mean, the combat is actually pretty basic and really lacking in any of the depth you might expect coming from other hack-and-slash games. Thing is, you have the ability to either dash or burst with R2, and while dashing or bursting, you do different close-ranged or ranged-based attacks. Both of these you'll do by pressing square, and it'll depend on how close you are to your target which one of these you'll do. So, in less confusingly written terms, you frantically tap R2 in order to dash around the stage quickly, while mashing square to ravage your enemies with bullets and hack them to pieces. It's simple, repetitive, and very superficial in a lot of ways, but I'd also argue that having both ranged and closed range attacks mapped to a single button is actually rather intuitive design. And even if it wasn't, it certainly plays well when it's all very streamlined either despite or because of its simplicity. However, it is when you aren't fighting that the controls can be kind of a problem. I mean, instead of fully utilizing both analog sticks, you still move up and down with X and triangle, which is a bit unwieldy. But while you're fighting, Jehudi will move up and down automatically as the game will track whatever target you're locked onto. And manually panning the camera is pretty painful as well, as it moves incredibly slow, especially when compared to how fast the rest of the game is. And to make things even better, the camera also snaps back to the default position whenever you let go of the left analog stick. So quite a few times I ended up slowly panning the camera around to look at something, only for it to automatically turn away as soon as I let go. Apart from that, there's also a few sections where you have to manually aim at things, which was just awful as the aiming reticle doesn't seem to take into account that depth is indeed a thing. But despite all of that, none of these issues actually affect the combat in any way. And while it's most definitely simple, the music, destructible environments, and the over-the-top dynamic movements do quite a bit to make the combat seem much more exciting than it actually is. Anyway, if it looks to you like I've been using footage from the same level over and over, then I regret to inform you that this is just what the game looks like. I mean, it looks pretty alright and I like the art style, but a bit more variety would have maybe not been such a bad idea. Also, the game's textures and models don't look great up close whenever you stop to smell the roses. And not only that, but you'll be going back and forth between these levels a lot as well, which can get a bit tiring. Thing is, the game's levels are always accessible via the overworld, and quite often you'll have to look for codes in order to open a door or to raise a force field or something. So basically, you'll need to go back to check all of these different levels to find the one frame carrying the code. And while it never reaches extreme levels of tedium, I could have easily seen this ruin the game if it were any longer than 5 hours. Again, it's just very superficial game design, and to me it made the game feel like a bit of an afterthought. I mean, it's not like it's unfinished or anything, but I just feel that even though it's good, it could have been better. Now, of course, it would make sense for Kojima to have had his hands full with NGS2 at the time, and this game likely suffered because of it. Thing is, the game doesn't really have much of a story, to be honest. I mean, everything happens very fast and the game is practically over before you know it. Leo just complains about everything for a bit and all of a sudden that one boss you just fought just happened to be the last. And not only that, but there aren't really any characters at all outside of Leo, his girlfriend, and Jehudi's AI, Ada. Really, even most of the bosses are just faceless machines with little to no personality, and apart from the bosses, there's only 2 enemy types, which really doesn't help to spice shit up either. However, despite all of that, the story does actually pick up right near the end. Really, just completely out of nowhere, there's some pretty exceptionally good writing, and even the voice acting isn't all that bad anymore. But even then, the story feels more like it's the first episode or pilot of a mech anime rather than a fully fledged story. Overall, though, I wouldn't say that the game is bad or anything. I mean, in a way, it's a lot like MGS2. Well, not from a gameplay standpoint, obviously, but it seems to be made in the same engine. So things like the art style, fonts, UI, music, and just the overall tone are pretty similar, which was pretty cool to me as a longtime MGS fan. Also, the combat was fun enough for what it was, despite of the game's repetitive design, and because of its brevity and arcadey gameplay, it has a lot of replay value as well. But sadly, it just feels like the dev team didn't even put half the amount of effort and time into it than they maybe should have. Again, I get why this is, but considering it's a Kojima game, I kinda expected a bit more. Although it is sad that its sequel pretty much shits all over this game in just about every aspect. So yeah, I guess I'll just go play and review that then. And I didn't even get to play my MGS2 demo.
Mate, like, for real. You suck. Like, really bad. Like, seriously. Suck my robot winky.
All right. I'll do it just this one time.